What are the different kinds of floors in a vinyl liner swimming pool? Vinyl liner pools, typically speaking, will have one of three kinds of floor. So we'll start at the entry level, sand. Sand is the least expensive, least extravagant, least good floor in a vinyl liner swimming pool. You can have a sand bottom pool and it'll look okay and it'll get the job done and it won't cost very much money, but it won't look very good, it won't feel very good. If you jump into the pool and you land heavy with your heels, you'll leave divots in the ground. If you have a light and you turn on the light at night, the bottom of your pool basically will look like the surface of the moon for all the divots and unevenness to it. And that's just the nature of sand bottom pools. They're just kind of a low-cost approach to protecting the liner, but not really doing a whole lot more. So let's look at a step up from there to the most common type of pool floor, which is a grout-based floor. Now, the grout that's used, well, all it is mortar, and what mortar is it's concrete that's sand and cement, but no gravel. So there's no larger aggregate, just small aggregate sand and cement. For the purpose of putting it in the bottom of a pool, it's called grout, but for every other technical purpose, that would just be called a mortar. And all that is a concrete floor that's installed in the pool. Now, there can be a third kind of floor that is one step better than that mortar or grout floor, and that's called a vermiculite concrete floor, or sometimes referred to as a two-stage floor. And that just refers to the way in which it's installed, and I'll explain that now. When you put up the walls in a vinyl liner pool, you pour what's called a collar. And that collar is just basically a bunch of concrete that you pour around the foot of the walls, and it anchors the whole pool in place, stops it from moving or shifting or anything like that. When you pour that collar, it's commonplace to put a bunch of concrete, because the type of concrete you're using there is full strength, really strong concrete. You've got a truck there already pouring the collar around the pool walls. So you pour a bunch extra into the pool, and you just kind of roughly rake it or shovel it into the position that you want, the final shape of the pool. You don't worry about the finish so much, just the shape of it. And you try to get it a couple inches thick so it has at least some structural integrity to it. It's not like you're pouring a structural floor that's 4 or 6 inches thick, maybe more like 1 to 3 inches, depending on the quality of the builder that you're dealing with. And again, the finish is not smooth. It's not like a floated and finally finished product. It's all very roughly done, and it's done that way on purpose because, again, this is called a two-stage floor. So what's the second stage? The second stage is a concrete, or a modified type of concrete called vermiculite concrete. And all this is some of the aggregate in this mix has been replaced with a mineral called vermiculite. And vermiculite basically just looks like brown styrofoam with gold flecks in it. If I had to describe it to the layman, that's the best way to describe it. It's ultra lightweight, and it has very high insulative properties, much more so than regular concrete, maybe 10 times as much. It's also softer. Anytime that you replace aggregate in concrete, you pretty much always compromise the strength. Almost anything other than sand or rocks mixed in with concrete will reduce the finished strength. Sand and rocks turns out really good to use for making strong concrete. So when we start substituting some vermiculite instead of some of that sand, we reduce the strength a little bit, which is why we poured that full strength concrete underneath in the first stage of this two-stage floor that we're pouring here. So the top part is going to be this vermiculite concrete, but it's going to be much thinner. We don't need a lot of structural strength out of it. All we're doing is trying to create a cushion floor that will provide a really secure base to protect the liner in the pool. Now, vermiculite concrete, it's still concrete. It's not soft like Play-Doh, but if you had vermiculite concrete and you were to take your heel and you were to stomp as hard as you can and bash the floor with it, you probably could divot out a little bit of that because it's just soft enough, but it still feels hard like concrete. So it's not a soft floor, but it is a little softer than a full strength concrete, like what a sidewalk might feel like. And as such, vermiculite does protect a vinyl liner a little bit better than the grout floor does, and here's why. A vinyl liner pool is designed such that the liner moves. Water will come up through the floor, and that's normal. That's part of the function of how a vinyl liner pool works, and you would never even really notice this for the most part as the pool owner. The liner isn't permanently 100% attached in place. It moves around a little bit, and in doing so over a grout bottom floor, there's a little bit of a sandpaper action that happens, and over time it can reduce the life of the liner or potentially even cause holes in the liner if the concrete itself was specifically rough. So this is one of the advantages of the vermiculite two-stage bottom, is that the concrete is a little bit softer, and that drag of the liner passing over it over time doesn't really affect it in the same way that it does with a grout bottom. So in total, those are the 3 different kinds of floor that you'll find in vinyl liner swimming pools. If you found this information helpful, please be sure to like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And you can check out my website, swimmingpoolsteve.com.